What's going on, everybody? So I kind of wanted to talk about something a bit different than what I usually discuss. This isn't a reaction video.
Listen.
This isn't anything particularly like that. I'm just kind of want to do a bit of, not a public service announcement, but some kind of words of wisdom. I know me, the known quote-unquote retard, is trying to part some words of wisdom. So as we all know, the gacha space is fairly big at this point, and there is a lot of people consuming content about all these games. There are lots of different kind of videos that are particularly popular. What is popular are videos like this, showcasing different DPSs, different team compositions, that tries to tell you or send some kind of message of like who you might want to pull for, which team is the strongest, who is the powerhouses of these games, and they kind of, you know, do these showcases to show to you who is strong. The only thing that I kind of take issue with is these showcases don't always give an accurate representation of who is quote-unquote strong, or maybe who is quote-unquote worth pulling for. And this video right here is a pretty good example of why maybe not everything is as it seems. Now, this is in no way meant to be a diss at this person right here, Zelvic Paxley. It's not meant to be a diss. It's not meant to be a call out. This isn't me trying to be, oh, this person is stupid. What are they doing? They're spreading misinformation. But I think people could watch this video and maybe a little bit misinformed or misguided in thinking who or what teams might be strong or not in Wuthering Waves, as is kind of demonstrated by comments, some of them saying that like Lupa might be kind of like mid or whatever it is. So I figured I'll tell you why showcases like this might not be the best way to judge power, and what you should keep in mind for making a good accurate judgment yourself on what is a good criteria to judge these things on. So let's take a look. So this video is titled Lupa versus the strongest DPS. Who is the best Wuthering Waves? Obviously, this video is trying to compare Lupa versus other DPSs and hypercarry teams and trying to show you how she stacks up amongst all these other characters. And the way that this person, Zelvic, is doing this is by, I'm going to kind of mute the video, I'll put it on very low. It's kind of showing these hypercarry teams versus a level 80 Tempest Mephis hologram, which I think is pretty, it's an interesting choice to kind of showcase. So let's just go ahead and have a look at this Carlotta hypercarry right here, okay? So we're going through a normal rotation, getting everything off. Again, these might not be perfect plays. It doesn't really matter too much, okay? It doesn't really matter too much. But here we go. We have Carlotta during her ult, doing her business, and then doing her big ult at the end, and then doing her skills, Shorekeeper intros, and now we see the boss is now dead. And how long did that take? That took 16 seconds to do. Okay. That whole bit took 16 seconds to do. So someone might watch this and come away thinking, wow, that's pretty quick. That's a pretty goddamn quick time. Now let's have a look at the Cardathea run. Okay, let's have a look at the Cardathea. Here we go. Who are we using? We're using Chacona, Era over Cardathea. This is her best team. Okay, we're using the best teams. We're using hypercarries. And here we are, going into our big fleur-de-lis form, doing everything we need to do. We have 6 stacks of air erosion. Everything is perfect. Enemy is getting absolutely melted. And then here we go. We're doing a liberation where the enemy is at like what are we at right now? Like 10%, 15% HP remaining. And now we're using our ult. Now we're using our ult, and of course, during the ult, the enemy is dead. Okay? The enemy is dead. But how long did that take? How long did that take? Ooh, I wonder. Wow, 17 seconds. Okay, 17 seconds. And you might think, wow, that's a 1 second difference. I think to a lot of people that kind of have a brain and common sense would think of this and be like, okay, these are both pretty strong teams. But someone who might not be as informed might look at something like this and be like, oh, that must mean this Carlotta team is stronger. Yeah, this Carlotta team must be better because she cleared it a second quicker, right? So this team must be like the better and the strongest team because of this. Failing to kind of realize that using a level 80 Tempest Mephis hologram boss is not a good control. It's not a good control, and we'll get into why in a minute. Let's go over, I'm gonna skip a bit, to the Lupa and Brant hypercarry, okay? This is really the thing that people are talking about. Lupa being kind of mid, she doesn't do a lot of personal damage, she's more of a support and a buffer. Let's take a look at the Lupa Brant hypercarry and see the time comparisons for this one. Okay. So we're using Brant, Lupa, and Shorekeeper, not a triple fusion team, but still. We have Lupa building up her Forte, she's getting her Wolf Flames, doing her enhanced skill stuff, all that sort of good stuff. And we have Brant, he's liberating. Again, working up to that massive nuke that he has in his anchor. Okay, enemies at 50% HP. Again, we're past, we haven't even got it up yet. Here we are. Here's the anchor, and we deal 426,000 damage while this level 80 hologram is at like what, 10-15% as well. Kind of similar to Cartithia. So how long did this take? How long did this take? Let's take a peek. Ooh, 21 seconds. Ew, 21 seconds? That's 5 seconds. That's 5 seconds slower than Carlotta. That's why she must be, that's like what? Like a 20%, 25% like slower time or whatever it is. How could we? Yeah, trash team, shaking my head. I'm sure people wouldn't say that that's trash, but a person who might not be as informed and not knowing what to look out for might see something like this and be like, wow, this team is significantly worse. This team seems to be significantly worse. But there is a very important thing to keep in mind with stuff like this, and why a level 80 Tempest Mephis hologram isn't a good control. Because, for example, going back to this Cartithia, the enemy dies during the first rotation ult. Same thing with the Lupa and Brant hypercarry. The enemy dies within the enhanced skill, the thing that deals, the skill that deals the most damage for Brant. It's overcapped on damage. The enemy dies during this period, but you're dealing so much more damage. So really, what this is telling you, this time isn't telling you how strong a team is. It really is just kind of telling you how quick the rotation times are for these teams. It's not a good representation of strength. All right, so what I'm gonna do to showcase why this doesn't make any sense to have as a metric, I have the exact same team here. I have Lupa, I have Brant, I have Shorekeeper. The difference being, my Brant is S6, so it should absolutely wipe the floor totally with any sort of S0 Carlotta team. To be perfectly honest, this guy puts out almost like 1 million anchors on it if he's having a good day or whatever it is, or he has his like best teams. So let's go take a look what he will do. Again, on a level 80, I don't know why we're doing level 80s and not at least level 90s, but let's have a look. A level 80 hologram and see just how long an S6 Brant takes to do.
Astral modulation. Loading. Get the me! With me!
Alright, here we go. Liberate. Do all that cool stuff. To Brant, our liberation.
Let the flames rise!
Into our anchor. And there we go. Look at that. Almost like an 800k more than that. Almost 1 million total damage right at the end there. And let's see how long this took to do. Wow, 22 seconds? It was slower. It was slower than in the video. It was 1 second slower in the video. Wow, that must mean that this team is worse. Somehow this S6 Brant must be worse than the team that they used. Wow, surely, right? Which is why I'm kind of unsure why they chose a level 80 hologram to kind of showcase this. I really feel a better way to understand how strong a team is to at least get like 2 rotations into this, right? Is at least to get 2 rotations so you could see the effect, how much damage your ult does, how much damage your nukes do, because otherwise you'll never truly know how strong your team is going to be. What matters at the end of the day is your overall DPS, not how quickly you could do a rotation, especially when you're up against a squishy mob. So I don't know, I kind of feel that these videos unintentionally mislead people, right? That's the problem here, and might let people come to conclusions that aren't necessarily true. How many people do you think would watch this video, see this Brant and Lupa team take 5 seconds longer, and kind of infer, wow, like, this team must suck compared to these other ones, like quite significantly so, failing to recognize that Brant just did a 426,000 nuke skill on this boss and would do so much more damage, but because the boss is only level 80, it dies so quickly, so we would never truly know. All this shows is kind of a rotation time and not anything else. So just be kind of mindful when you watch these videos and you're trying to use them to compare teams. Be mindful of what you're looking out for. Make sure people are showing you like full rotations. You're getting the full scope of these characters as best as you can. Honestly, the solution to this is really Kuro Games implementing some kind of training dummy where it will store all the DPS in a certain time period. I think that is kind of the solution to this, but I don't think they would implement that because that would just be a tool that will be used against the game itself, right? While it could be useful to the players, you know people would use that to kind of shit on Kuro Games and be like, well, this team's stronger than this team and this thing. So I doubt they would ever do something like that because it could definitely bite them in the ass, but it would be a solution to this. Actually having a good way of measuring DPS of a certain time period accurately with teams, but that's never going to happen. So just be mindful when we're watching these videos and we're watching these comparisons and what conclusions we're drawing from them, because hey, you never know. You might be unintentionally being misled. I don't think Zelvic Paxley is spreading misinformation intentionally with malice, but I do think it's kind of alluding to it, right? We have descriptions like this that say comparison of the strongest S0R1 DPSs versus Lupa versus best DPS, top 10 best DPS Wuthering Waves. This is all about like people who are looking for who is the best DPS are watching this video. They're probably not entirely informed and they'll probably draw the wrong conclusions from this. So that's really all I, want to say about this. We need DPS meters in Wuwa. That would be kind of interesting, right? That would be kind of interesting. So yeah, that's all I really wanted to say. Just be mindful out there of this kind of content, a bit unintentionally misleading. But that's all I really have to say about this. I don't really do videos like this. I'm not here to try and shit on anyone. Just to provide a bit of like, hey, let's just be mindful when we watch content like this. Feel free to enjoy it, but just be mindful of what it's actually showing or what information is truly useful for you and what information will be beneficial. So I appreciate y'all. I'm live every single day on Twitch and Kick. You can see my links in the pinned comment down below. I appreciate y'all, and I will see you all on the next one. Peace.
Twitch.tv/Captain Cabinetz, Captain Cabinetz.